Hello, everyone. My name is John Farner with the Irrigation Association. Welcome to our webinar regarding Irrigation Labs, and Labs is leadership and business success. Thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon out here on the East Coast. I have with me today three fine gentlemen, experts in their own rights, talking about a new opportunity that the IEA is coordinating along with these three individuals for irrigation contractors in a way to advance their business, to advance your business. We are recording this webinar, so if we gloss over something that you missed, this will be available afterwards. You can go and refresh your memory. And there's also be contact information at the very end, as well as a question and answer period. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the questions box on your GoToWebinar toolbox there. Just type those in, and I'll be more than happy to throw those off to our panelists throughout the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to first introduce John Newland. John Newland is an irrigation contractor out of Ohio, and also an executive committee member of the Irrigation Association. And I think he's done pretty much everything within our volunteer infrastructure within the IA. So, John, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw the controls over to you. So you should have a box pop up to allow us to see your screen, and you can run through your slides and go from there. So, John, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, John.
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting for that to come up.
We see your screen right now. We got your screen right now. All I do is open up your PowerPoint. You're good to go.
My PowerPoint.
The slides, your slides.
Yeah, but where are they? I don't see where they are, John. You see my screen.
Yeah, so I can take it back over and run through the shell that we had there and on my slides, and you can kind of talk about where we are. Okay, sounds good. So I'll take that back over.
Thank you.
Sorry, folks. Yeah, no problem. We will go ahead and do that. And then there you go. So I don't have the exact what's in there, man, but you can talk about, the topics that you're going to talk about there.
Okay, very good. Welcome. My name is John Newland, board member, contractor. As John stated before, thanks for spending some time with us today to promote a new program for the IA contractor members. The staff and board are committed to promoting and encouraging personal development and growth, and this all fits into that whole picture. That in turn equates to more profitability for our members, and that's what this is all about. We're building an environment that promotes contractor members and business consultants to grow and promote their own trades. Next slide, John.
Yeah.
Okay. All my contractor friends, and I have a number of them that have been part of a peer group and benefit from that immensely, in both in personal growth and financially. The cost involved is an investment in their own personal development and their business development. And as businessmen, we all, day in and day out, spend money on education for both ourselves and our employees, capital expenditures for new equipment, software, communications, new phones, new computers, and lastly, our own personal development. And sometimes that is last. And this hopefully is an opportunity to put it up front then. Because I think by and large, an investment like this in time and money is going to return more to you, both in the wallet and in a personal development way. I know it has for me in the past. Honest feedback, I believe, is my next slide. Value. Getting honest feedback from your peers is really what this is all about. And it's kind of holding your feet to the fire. All my years of supervising people, the best motivator for me has been my peers. I work with a number of different contractors throughout the country, and they have a tendency to hold your feet to the fire. They drive you in a competitive nature, and I think that's what it's all about. Giving advice, learning from their experiences, a little bit of venting, and sharing best practices. So those are the reasons that I feel very strongly that this program was put on the front burner. And thanks to Dennis and Chris and John, that's where it is today.
All right, thanks, John. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Chris. Chris, I'm going to go ahead and give the controls over to you right now. So there you go.
Okay, let's see. Do we have my screen yet?
We do, yes.
Perfect. Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending. I just wanted to share a few thoughts from my perspective, a little bit about my background and how I came to be involved in this project, this opportunity. I have experience from the educational side in my educational background. I've been an irrigation landscape contractor, been involved in the IA's educational offerings. I've developed and taught a lot of the business classes for the IA, and I also work as a consultant for some contractors in the industry. And it's interesting that John Newland had approached me with this concept a little while ago, I think last summer, and at the same time, Dennis McEntee, who I've known for several years and had worked with for a while, had both kind of approached me with, hey, you know, it would be really, really great if we could get together a peer group in the irrigation industry. And from John's perspective, as he just described, it is more so from the benefit to IA member contractors, and then from Dennis's perspective, since he manages and runs and facilitates several other peer groups, that he would, knowing that I was involved, and he has other contacts within the landscape and irrigation community, that it would just be a great opportunity to be able to provide some type of a group like this. So what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about it from kind of the business perspective. I think Dennis is going to talk about it a little bit more about the nuts and bolts, and then also from the personal perspective of what these groups are all about. The way I kind of view or see that a lot of irrigation contracting businesses in our community really do have, there's a lot of similarities, and that many of the owners and the executive teams got into this industry from the perspective of an individual that appreciated the work, the opportunity just as a contractor, but not necessarily from the perspective of, hey, you know, I'm a business major and I've been looking for the best business opportunity, and so I'm going to get into the irrigation industry. And the result of that is that many times there isn't a perspective from, and not that it necessarily is always a better perspective from a business manager that's been trained in that as to be a business manager. The other thing that we see a lot of too is that all businesses in all industries tend to plateau. And in our industry with irrigation contracting businesses, it's usually it's very common, and we see it with companies that are successful and newer. We see it with companies that tend to struggle. We see it get to the point many times where the ownership and the leadership team really just don't know where to turn. That they want to grow, but there's always something that seems to be holding people back. And many times, as I have said frequently, it's that look into the mirror that can be really, really difficult to really take it to that next level. The other thing that's a real challenge for our businesses are that the seasonality in many areas, and it's more dramatic in others, kind of give a feast or famine type of a management approach, or it's go time, and that it's all hands on deck for production. And many times we kind of lose focus of the business plans that are made, and a lot of times contractors will make plans in the off season, and then they have a really tough time kind of executing them because they're not able to really get outside of that mentality of we've got to get all this work done and we've got to make it happen. And especially now with a lot of the struggles that happen with labor shortages and struggles in really hiring qualified labor. There's tons of challenges out there, and I threw together really quickly a list of all of the different challenges that businesses face, really more just from the to kind of establish a little bit of a perspective on, you know, how do we solve these types of problems? Where do we get help? And a lot of times that's not an easy solution at all. Sometimes the solution is to hire consultants that specialize in different areas. Sometimes it's to really upgrade the level of our executive teams, or at least, you know, surround ourselves with managers that have a lot of skill. Things that really tend to cost a lot of money, and sometimes it doesn't really solve the problem because we're really getting perspectives and we're getting information from people that are within our own organization, as opposed to outside views for what it is that we really could be doing better from someone that's kind of an outsider, somebody that's really had experience with a lot of these challenges that we really are facing. So the concept here of a peer group, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Peer groups are something that are very common, although there are a bunch of different styles and structure for a lot of the peer groups that are out there. Dennis, I know, is going to spend a little bit of time talking more specifically about the proposed peer group that we've put together. But a peer group typically is a group of individuals or entities that share similar characteristics and interests. In our world here, it's more all businesses that have similar income, sales levels, and have different geographic locations, but all have very similar characteristics and interests. Most of these peer groups usually meet very regularly. Many times we see that these groups, especially if they're in the same geographic area, tend to meet monthly. In our situation, that's not something that probably realistically is all that possible. So we're looking at probably 2 to 3 times a year for getting together. These groups, when they meet, usually involve some type of a process where the individual members, and usually we're thinking, you usually see 7 to 10 members will get together, share their challenges. And one thing that's really important for the success of these types of groups and the individuals that participate in them is this level of vulnerability that's really important. I've kind of joked about saying, you know, you got to be comfortable with kind of getting undressed metaphorically in front of the group, because it can be, you really want to be able to really expose everything in order for a group to help solve these types of challenges. The next step really is to get together, solve these challenges, and as a team. And then, as John said, one thing that's a significant benefit is the accountability of these types of groups, where on a bunch of different levels, once everybody is kind of committed to doing what it is that they've decided is going to happen in order to solve those individual problems, that there's a really high level of accountability within the members in that group. I'm going to take us on a link here. John, did this show up on the screen? Just had a hot link embedded in here.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So this is a Forbes article that was actually pretty interesting, and it was written by someone, it's Robert Glazer, and the title, How a Peer Group Transformed My Business and Personal Life. And it talks about this individual and his involvement in this group and his experience with his company that was doing about $1 million in sales, and the ability for him to grow that business primarily because of what he was able to do within his entrepreneurial group. He was part of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a large national group that has groups within smaller markets. The second thing, I'm just going to go right to this link over here, which is actually pretty cool, is an Inc. magazine article with the top 10 reasons for joining a peer group. And this article goes on to address, it's about a year old, and it's pretty interesting because it goes through the different reasons why these groups are beneficial. First reason, which I think is really significant, is what we said before, accountability. Many times when you're running your own organization, you're really only accountable to yourself, or at least it seems that way. These groups are most effective because of that accountability to others in the group. Fast track learning. Usually the group members all have gone through many similar types of, or gone through the same situation before. When you have 3 or 4 other members in that group that have gone through the same thing, a lot of times there's a tremendous amount of time that can be saved. Been there, done that, same thing. Being able to look ahead with the vision from others in the group. A safe zone. It's a place where, like we said before, your vulnerability and your ability to really share what you're experiencing personally as well as within your organization is something that you can't many times do within your group or within your company. You can do it within this group. The motivation to be able to, especially if you know there's a meeting coming up, and your ability to know that you've got a deadline to actually complete the things that you promised to do. Emotional support, work on the business rather than in it. Again, a struggle that we see many times because we're so focused on getting the work done. The value of a network, which is usually more prevalent when it's a local group, and scaling, which really, again, if you're trying to get to that next level, many times everyone in the group, or at least some of the members in the group, have already gone through that type of a challenge and already have a solution that can save a tremendous amount of time. One thing I want to point out here that I think is kind of interesting too is peer groups are different than networking groups. IA has done a contractor networking group a couple of times with great success. This group is a little bit different. Peer groups, different than networking groups. What makes them different, especially the best ones, is that you have to pay to join one, especially one that is facilitated by a professional. The smaller and more specialized the peer group is, and the more experienced its facilitator, the more expensive it can be. These groups do have some inherent costs. And the costs are associated with the locations, with facilitating meeting space, the cost of the facilitators, the food, the fees for that. Our group is also we're offering some monthly coaching and support. So those fees are going to cover all that type of those inherent costs. Most people that take part in these types of groups all have a very similar evaluation of these types of groups, that the benefits just far outstrip the costs involved. And you think about it, when you compare it to the cost of developing your own or hiring your own internal boards or internal teams or a team of consultants, which can be very, very expensive, these types of groups are usually incredibly cost effective. What we're looking at for this group and what our plan is, and again, it's going to depend more so on the number of or the members that apply for this group and that decide they would like to be involved. We're trying to separate the groups based on sales or revenue for the individual companies. At this point, we're thinking that there probably would be two groups. One would have revenues less than $1.5 million a year, about that range, and then a second group with revenues larger than $1.5 million a year. And the monthly membership fees would run from $395 to $795, based on the size of the groups and the revenue associated with the members. So just to pull it all together, these groups are seen very regularly, are incredibly effective. We believe that this is a great opportunity. There are other groups out there in the green industry. We see local groups that are formed within a local business community. There are national groups in our industry, in other industries. This is the first one we've seen out there that we're exposed to that is just focused on irrigation contracting and irrigation businesses. We're very excited about the possibility with getting companies together for this group. I'm going to turn this over to Dennis, who will talk a little bit more, I think, about the nature of this group specifically himself and some other factors with this group.
Great, thanks, Chris. Dennis, I'm going to go ahead and transfer the controls over to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, man. Oops, I don't even have my thing right. There it is. Okay. All right, caught me a little bit. Okay, listen, guys, I am super honored just that you're joining us on a webinar, and you're the kind of person that I want to be around. I mean, nobody gets on a webinar that doesn't want to grow their business and doesn't want to get better. And so just so you know, this is a picture of my friendly face, and there's my great family. I've been married for 28 years, and my second son just got married. And I am also the author of 8 Qualities of Drama-Free Teams. And so that's a little bit just about me, who I am, and all that good stuff. And I wanted to give everybody a special bonus because, listen, you're on the webinar. And so I've got a document. It's called the 20 Coaching Questions That Drive Results. So at the end of the webinar, I want to just shoot that out to you and send that to you as just a way of saying thanks for being on the webinar. And I know that most of us deal with teams is like we're tired of the excuses. Anybody out there tired of the excuses, right? All the different excuses that either I make or my team members make. And we really want you to achieve more this upcoming year with less stress. So I just want to give you the top 20 coaching questions that you can use with your teams. So let's talk about real quick the 6 mindsets of growth. And really for you to grow your business and grow your organization this year, we really believe that these are sort of the 6 mindsets. And first of all, people that really grow, they always make their future bigger than their past. You know, they always have a big future. I tell people all the time, listen, if you don't have big goals, gosh, I really can't help you. So what are your goals for this year? What's that bigger future that you're kind of striving for? And I know that people that grow, they have to believe that life gives to the givers and it takes from the takers. And so I know that if I want to have more, I actually have to give more. It's a crazy way of how life works, but it's just how it works. And so life really gives to the givers and takes from the takers. And I've seen people that join these peer groups, and the ones that get the most value are the ones that give the most. They kind of come into it and they just want to share ideas, share some of their thoughts, share where they've been. And I always know when I come into any relationship and I give, I always end up receiving more. And another mindset of growth is that they really take 100% ownership for their life, their business, and their results. And so we're not looking for any blamers or anybody that, complains. It's like, listen, if I want to change my results, I just have to change my behavior. Another mindset of growth is that they're focused on transformation, not just transactions. See, because the reality is that when you get better, your business gets better. And I know for me, what I do kind of flows out of who I am. I tell people all the time that, if I were to kick the person most responsible for my problems, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. But I know that next year, me coming into next year, and if I look 1 year from now, I know that if I can transform myself, my business transforms, because what I do always flows out of who I am. And so it's the same with your business. What you're doing in your business is really flowing for just who you are. So if you want to grow your business, you first got to step back and go, okay, how can I grow myself? I grow myself, I grow my team, and then my organization grows. And people that are always growing, they're really focused on expanding freedoms. And we want you, as you come into the peer group, think about sort of 4 freedoms that we want you to expand on. We want you to expand on freedom of time. I've realized that entrepreneurs, it's typically never about the money. It's always about freedom. We want freedom of time. So I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. I want freedom of money. I want to continue to be able to make more and more money. I don't want to have a limit on it. And then I want freedom of relationships. I want to work with the customers that I want to work with. I want to build the kind of team I want to build. I want to work with the vendors I want to work with. And then it's freedom of purpose. I want this freedom to do what, I feel kind of called to do. And so I've seen that with entrepreneurs and business owners is they're always focused on really expanding freedoms. And then they surround themselves with other people that are just getting smarter. And that's what I want to be. I want to be around a group of people that are just always getting smarter. And that's what the peer group starts to create, is that we're going to be in a group together where we're just getting smarter and smarter and growing and growing. This is an interesting article by Fast Company put this. This is probably 2005, and this is what they surveyed. They surveyed just over 100 people that were actually in a life-changing, had a life-changing illness, and it was all behavioral based. So basically, they told them, you have to stop smoking, or 6 months from now, you're going to die. And here's what they found. They found 9 out of the 10 people they couldn't change. They just couldn't change behavior. And when we think about it, guys, think that it's really hard to change behavior. And if I want different results, if I want different outcomes, I just have to change some behaviors that I'm making. So they found that 9 out of the 10 people, they could not change behavior, even when it was a life-threatening illness. But here's what they found out about the 10% that did change, the 1 out of 10 that did change, is that all of them had the one thing in common, and that was they had a peer support group. They had a support group that were walking with them and helping them change. And, listen, it's not life and death for many of us, right? It's like, this is not about a life-changing illness that if you don't join this peer group, you're going to die. But the point is that that's the power of having a peer group, is that it's going to help you change behaviors. And so that's the kind of group that I want to be around. So the question really becomes, would you like to get feedback from people that are really going through the same issues as you? Do you want to gain a sounding board for your business and for your life? Do you want to improve your management, leadership, and financial skills? Because we're going to be in a group that is getting smarter and smarter. Do you want to learn from fellow contractors that have faced similar challenges? And so the question is, you're kind of at a fork in the road, I think, as we're kind of ending on this webinar, is that you can kind of choose 2 different paths. You can kind of choose down a path of like, hey, I'm going to do the same thing I did last year, and I'll probably get the same results. Or you can choose another path and go, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to take a mindset of growth, and I'm going to join a peer group, and really start to grow and develop. And so what we want to really kind of ask you is, would you like to be in? And so just to keep the integrity of the group, we want to just invite you to a 30-minute discovery call. It says 30, but we meant 30 minutes. No more than 30 minutes of a discovery call. and we just want to have a conversation. And then at the end of the call, we can both decide if this really is a right fit for you. And so the basic details is that we're going to meet together about 3 times a year, sometime in February, mid-season, and at the end of the year. And so there are 3 one-day meetings. And then in between, here's what we discovered, is that in between these meetings, we're going to have focusing calls once a month, where, say in February, you set your goals, you say, this is what I'm going to do. Well, every month, you're going to get a focusing call to really keep you focused and keep you accountable. And what I love about the peer groups is that we really create this board of directors that you get. And I know for me, accountability is a huge issue, and I'm sure it is for you. And with a peer group, we're going to increase the level of transparency. And I know that when I increase transparency, accountability always increases. You think about any area in your life that you lack accountability, you need to increase transparency. I mean, think about, say like, you wake up one day and you announce to everybody, hey, I'm going on a diet. Well, do you realize nobody ever cares what you put in your mouth until you announce I'm going on a diet? And you say, I'm going on a diet. And then next week somebody comes by and says, hey, you're putting a donut in your mouth. I thought you were going on a diet. So it's a way of increasing accountability is by increasing transparency. And that's really what happens. So we want just to invite you, if this is something that you feel like, hey, I'd like a little bit more details, I'd like to talk about it a little bit more, I'd like to get just a little bit more information, I'd love just to have a conversation with you. And I just want you to text the word mastermind to 864-901-7315. It's 864-901-7315. And we'll just see if it's the right fit. At the end of the call, we'll really kind of both decide. You'll feel like it's a right fit, and we'll feel like it's a right fit too. So just like I promised you, if you'd love the special bonus, there are the 20 coaching questions. Just go to dennismcentee.com/20 coaching questions toolkit. And actually, John, I'll send you a copy of that, and maybe you can just send it off to people. Maybe make it a little bit easier. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's fine. We have everyone who's attending the webinar, so we can be more than happy to email that to everybody.
Yeah, we'll just email it out as just it's just our group. So do we want to take some time for questions, or just Chris have anything?
Yeah, we can. Let me change that back. Let's see here. There we go. Slideshow from current slide. There we go. So we can take some time for questions, answers, and discussion now. I remind everybody, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, John, Chris, or Dennis, please go ahead and fill that into the question box right there. I will say that, Chris, you mentioned the cost of this opportunity. One thing that I don't think we highlighted was that IA membership dues are included in that cost. So this is only open to IA members, and being an IA member, you provide dues every year. If you do so, that base level of dues is included with that cost. So it's actually a pretty good deal once that's taken into consideration. After Dennis talking, Chris or John, do you have any follow-up thoughts before, while some people think of questions to type into the box if there are any?
No, I don't.
Chris, any other thoughts?
Oh, let me click that. No, I actually don't. Dennis,
Okay.
Thank you. That was actually interesting. I don't have any additional thoughts.
Good. I will say that this is something that the IA has been considering for a while now. And I really thank John Newland and Chris Pine specifically to really lead the charge on this. And I think it's, we got to ask all the time, what is the value of membership? Contractors belong to the IA for various reasons, whether it's education, certification, advocacy, access to discounts, things like that. But I think there's a really, truly value added to the Irrigation Association membership. And hopefully, if you are interested, please feel free to reach out to Dennis with the text number. Reach out to anyone at the Irrigation Association. My email address is just johnfarner@irrigation.org if you have any questions for follow-up. We will email everyone out the document that Dennis promised, as well as content information for all of us, that if you do have any questions, and like I said, if you have any further questions, you want to view this webinar again, this will be up on the IA website, and we can feel free to review it once again if you thought you missed anything, or reach out to any one of us afterwards. So with that said, I guess we'll end the webinar a little bit early. If I don't see any questions. John, Dennis, and Chris, thank you very much. This is going to be a great program. We at the IA, from a staff perspective, are very excited about it, and look forward to the great things that are to come.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Awesome.
With that said, yeah, thank you very much for attending, everybody. Have a great day.